All right, I'd like to welcome Mark Griswold to the Faithful Five podcast. Mark is the Director of Religious Education and Music Ministries at St. Norbert's, a Philadelphia area parish. And Mark, we're glad to have you here. Give me a quick background on yourself and your family.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to see you, man. Quick background. I am married to my lovely wife, Shayo. We've been married for 26 years. We have four children, three boys and a girl. My oldest, Robbie, is 25 and is in the working world as an engineer now. My second, Patrick, is 22 and he also just graduated college and just started his first job here in Philadelphia. Abby, my daughter, is 20, and she is a sophomore at LaSalle University in Philly. And then the baby is John Paul, and he's 15, a sophomore in high school, and he's doing really well. And we live, obviously, like you said, I work at St. Norbert's, but we live in Delaware County in Media. So I'm about 20, 25 minutes away from the parish. Yeah, that's me.
All right, you're coming down the College Mountain. That's a good journey.
Little by little.
So tell me, let's start it off with where did faith start to play a role in your life? Were you younger, more
Yeah.
recently? Give us a little background and where did it lead you initially?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say in my life, faith has always been present as far back as I can remember. I mean, even as like a young child. I was the youngest of seven kids, and my parents were both very devout Catholics. My father was actually a convert to the Catholic faith. He was Methodist, and then when he met my mother, converted and became a Catholic. And was always both of them were very involved in our church, in doing different things. I remember vividly my dad was just like the guy that kind of did everything around the church to help the priest out. So he was in charge of like putting the bulletin together and running it off, back in the days of mimeograph machines. I remember him going on Saturdays to run off all the bulletins, you know, and and my dad also had a great voice, so he would lead the singing. We belonged to a really small parish because I was born in a little town in southern Arkansas, actually, and in the Bible Belt, and there weren't a lot of Catholics around, so our parish maybe had 100 families tops, in our little church. And
Wow.
so my dad used to lead the singing at Sunday the one mass on the weekend. And he would, we had an organist and he would get up and sing and lead everybody in hymns, and this really booming bass voice. And I think that's probably where I got, my singing abilities was from him. And my mother was, involved in all kinds of things in the church too. So I would say, I was kind of born with faith and brought up in the faith and always kind of had an interest in it, even, as I got older. And I would say my faith really took off, Tom, in high school. At my parish, there were some people that started like a youth group at my parish in high school, and I might have been like an eighth grader or a freshman, and they invited me to be a part of that. And I was really, I think I was really impacted by that experience because, we would get together as with other teens and we would read the Bible, we would talk about
Wow.
our faith, and, and it really started to almost become very personal at that point. I began to take a lot more ownership of my faith, and I would say that just continued to develop and grow, over time with, ups and downs as always, but definitely it's something that's always been a part of my life.
Okay. Most influential person in your life and what type of impact did that person or people make? Obviously, it sounds like your mom and dad played a big role in that, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a hard one, Tom, because at different times there's been very influential people in my life, and but if I had to pick one person, believe it or not, we named our youngest son after him, was the former Pope John Paul II, because he was Pope most of my life, growing up, from my childhood all the way up to adulthood. And it was during that period, obviously, that my Catholic faith was growing, and I was learning more, and I was reading more, and I was just, I was interested in a lot, and I was very impacted by John Paul II, by his example, and like his life story, his how he really changed the course of the world and history in so many ways. The fall of communism, how much he was part of that, in Eastern Europe and all of that, and then just his writings. I read a lot of his stuff in college and into my adulthood, and I felt very close to him. Even though I'd never met him in person. I mean, I'd seen him and I'd gone to those big, papal masses when he came to the United States, so on and so forth. But I always had this almost like this closeness with him that's just hard to describe, as if I knew him and as if he knew me. And so he was always a hero to me. And so that's when he died in 2005, and shortly thereafter, a couple of years later, our last son was born. My wife and I were like, well, he's definitely going to be John Paul, because of the role that he played in our life. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get off on a tangent here, but I would agree with you about John Paul. He was so relatable, like to the everyday person. What do you think made him so charismatic with that? Because I
Jeez.
feel the same way, especially when he aged and had challenges with his health.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just thought he was like a real person, like a real man. Like he had struggles in his early life. His mother died at a very young age, so he lost her as a child. He lived with his father, and he had to work, by the sweat of his brow. He worked in the mines, during World War II. He he was an outdoorsman. Like, he loved nature. He loved to go mountain climbing. He loved sports. He embodied he embodied a lot of, what I would consider just to be a lot of good masculine, manly traits, and in such a way that he knew suffering and he knew joy. He understood life, and didn't shy away from it. Like, he was just very real. And I think that that's what really made him approachable to me, that I could relate to things he would go through in his life, and then apply it to my own, and just feel that, like almost like that kinship with him in so many ways. So yeah, and I agree with you, Tom. Watching him when he got older, how he didn't hide his suffering. He didn't hide what he was going through. It's almost like he was showing that to the world, to help us understand that yeah, suffering is part of human existence, and he showed that in a real way in his own life. And I just felt very almost like cared for by him, and like he knew what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it, and those challenging things, and also encouraging things. So yeah, just an amazing man, really.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about obstacles, what you think the biggest obstacles for men are in, trying to live their faith. Obviously, you had uh, awakening in high school. Some people, it takes them a little longer. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
talk about what you think some of the obstacles are for men, whether they're younger, older, or
Right.
the same challenges, just different ages.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that for men can get in the way. I think um, sometimes just there's so many distractions, right? There's things that consume, men's lives, job, career, responsibilities, just different things that I think can sometimes not necessarily get in the way of faith, but kind of just kind of take the place of focusing on your spiritual life. And it's, you're more concerned about just kind of the outward, day-to-day living, right? Whereas the spiritual life is one that is kind of a journey inward, like into your own heart, your own life, your own kind of your dealing with the things of your spirit and your soul. And that's a little bit more ethereal, right? It's not as concrete. And I think men like concrete and like things to be sometimes very clearly delineated. And I think sometimes it's easy to miss kind of those deeper things, those spiritual things in men's life. And then I think also, for a lot of guys, you kind of grow up kind of thinking, not to show a lot of emotion or kind of keep things hidden or those deeper things, just kind of hold them to yourself. And so you don't know, it seems like a challenge sometimes to open up about those things or to share those things. And I think guys in particular kind of struggle with that, whereas I think women more often are kind of feelers and just kind of are able to more naturally kind of share, what's on their heart or what's on the interior. And that's, not to say that men can't do that or shouldn't do that. Absolutely, men should do that. I just think that there's those kind of like those barriers that sometimes we put up and that get in the way of that. I mean, that's just, and that's not that, and I don't think that's the case in every, circle. I think, every man is not the same, every man's different. And but in general, I think sometimes that's true, those little obstacles.
I think every man is different, but we suffer from the same kind of challenges that you just touched on. I think a lot of us in general.
Yeah.
What you maybe the biggest myth about living your faith or any tips that you would have for men in terms of trying to jumpstart their faith or dealing with challenges or just trying to reawaken themselves away from our secular world into a little more of a faith focus?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest myths about, kind of embracing and living your faith, for men is that, oh, well, it's not going to be fun anymore. Life's not going to be fun. I'm going to lose, all these other things that bring me joy and things like that. And I think that really is a myth, because the reality is that faith, I think, opens you up to so much more. I think it opens the doors to like a deeper joy and a deeper satisfaction. That kind of our interest or the world or the things, money or riches or success or power. I mean, all those things that, kind of the kind of the world says are the important things in life. They don't compare, I think, to the joy of and the peace that comes with having God in your life, having your life focused on the Lord, and then kind of following His will. My encouragement for guys is to really just be willing to kind of open your heart, to the Lord. That faith isn't just a set of rules. It's not just, a checklist of things that you have to do or certain prayers you have to say. That faith is really more about a relationship, and that God invites us, every one of us, male and female, into a relationship with Him, and to get to know Him in a deeper way. And that's a real personal thing. That's the beauty of it. And so if we open ourselves to that, then we'll experience, I think, some amazing things, and that only God can give and God can bring to us. So you got to be willing. You got to kind of open the door. God's kind of knocking on the door of our hearts, and there's a painting. I always love the painting. There's a picture of Jesus, and he's knocking on the door, but there's no handle on the outside of the door. The only handle's on the inside. Meaning you're the only one that can open the door. He can't. He doesn't have the handle to open the door of your heart. And so, I would say to guys, just be willing to open it a crack and invite him in, and see what happens. Right. So
Very well said. Thank
anyway,
you. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to spend a few minutes with us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. So thanks for
Tom,
joining me.
thanks for having me. This was great.